we're going to talk about a topic that is not really talked about very often in real estate, Don, right? I mean, it's something that we talk a lot about closing deals and conversion and lead gen and stuff like that. And you and I were talking on the phone earlier, and you're like, no one ever trains people, or no one ever learns the proper way to go about CMAs and comparable listings and determining value for our clients, which is a very important aspect as realtors for the services that we provide. So, Don, you're a realtor, broker, owner, entrepreneur, and also an appraiser. So tell us, like, I'm going to give it away now. It's your show, and I'll be on in the background. People, you guys, as always, if you have questions, feel free to add them in the chat. I'll make sure Don gets them, and then I may jump in and ask some questions in between. So Don, take it away, my friend.
So yes, thank you so much for the opportunity to talk to everybody this morning. I do a lot of appraisal work for court cases. I testify a lot in court. And I'm also out selling houses. And we're always talking about lead gen, conversion, getting more deals. But, we're really forgetting that part of our service is to help the client determine what the list price is for their home. And also, when you're making an offer, that you also give your client good advice. And unfortunately, when you're going through most of your licensing and training, people don't tell you about valuations. They really don't help you on how to appropriately select comparables. And so I see out there a need in training agents to help them understand valuations. Let me turn my phone to silent. And so I would like to speak a little bit about that today. So I'm going to give you a little bit of Appraisal 101, and Kevin has a test, an online test after this. Each of the team leaders said if you don't pass this test that you'll be finding a new team. So the first thing we will look at when I look at a house is that one of the most important things is zoning. And we talk about there's a test that appraisers use called the highest and best use, HBU, highest and best use of that particular site, that piece of unique land, that unique piece of dirt. What is the highest and best use? That's going to really determine your value. And so when we're doing our analysis, most people just go look at a tract home or something built, and they don't even think about HBU because it's pretty much the answer's there. It's the highest and best use of a single family home. It's when you get into properties that are unique, that are maybe have a larger lot size than typical, maybe are on a street where you see commercial and residential. And so I'm not going to spend too much time on HBU, but I want to at least go through the 4 tests. The first one is it physically possible? Is it physically possible to build on that lot, right? Is it a swampland, or is it a cliff where you cannot physically build a house? So if it can't be physically there, then it can't be built on. The next one I think is the most important that agents should be looking at is it's legally permissible. What's legally permissible to be built on that lot? And I'm going to come back to that. The third one is it financially feasible? Is the cost of building this so much higher than the actual market value that it's going to cost me $5 million to build this house, and then when I'm done with it, it's only worth $1 million? That says, well, the highest and best use is not to build. And if we remember, for those agents who were in the business in 2007, 2008, 2009, that the cost of real estate, the cost of single family homes dropped so far below that it would cost you more to build a house than it is to buy a house, so you wouldn't build, correct? And the fourth one is what is maximally productive? What is going to get you the highest net return on that site, that investment? And so those are the 4 tests. And I really want to talk about what is legally permissible in zoning. And so when I'm looking at a property, I look at it and say, okay, what is this property zoned for? Is it zoned for a duplex? Is it zoned for a commercial? Is it zoned for single family, right? What is the minimum lot size? If the minimum lot size to build the requirement for your city zoning is 7,500 square feet, and you've got a lot that's 20,000 square feet, that's larger than the minimum requirement, you may have more value because you could subdivide that land and get more money for your client. And I see agents all the time, they'll list a property really low that has a big lot size. They don't know. And some investor comes and scoops it up, buys the house, subdivides it, and makes a killing at their client's expense. Because you have a fiduciary responsibility to your seller to give them adequate information and to get the highest possible price for their home. Any questions thus far?
No, I think it's really good. We haven't had any questions yet, but I have something, and it's maybe a little premature. But one of the things that we deal with all the time is, obviously a lot of multiple offers, and then our clients are asking us, well, hey, what's the home worth? What do you think it's going to go for? That's like the question of the day, right? Like the question of the year is, what's it going to be worth? What's it going to go for? So how do we determine what comps to use for that?
Okay, that's a great question, and this is a great question. I get this asked on the court stand all the time, and we're going to talk about that, where you should start your search for your comparables, and then how to narrow it down to get the best comparables for your CMA. So a lot of times I'm on the stand, and an attorney will be looking at two different appraisal reports, so they're trying to argue about value, and they always come to me and say, Don, isn't the square footage the most important thing when selecting your comparables? And I'm like, no. And they go, well, explain why. And so I want to go through that process. I'm going to actually do a share screen here. And let's see if it shares. Okay. So everyone should be able to share my screen. So this is an actual appraisal software appraisal report that I've done. You'll notice that this is obviously going from top to bottom, from the subject to the comparables, and then going horizontally is the adjustments that I'm going to make. You'll see that it starts out with the type of financing, the concessions, time of sale, location, whether it's fee simple or leasehold, site size, the condition, and then square footage, and then obviously it goes down to the bottom to garage count, pool, spa, fireplace, etc. And so it's really important that you understand, a lot of times they go automatically to square footage as the most important. But let me ask you this question. If I had a subject that had 1 acre lot and had a 2,400 square foot property, and I had a comparable that had a 6,000 square foot lot and 2,400 square feet, and I had another one that was an acre and was 1,500 square feet, which one would be the more appropriate comp? The lot size is more important because that's a unique feature. The bigger lot size is more important than square footage, because a 1 acre lot compared to a 5,000 square foot lot, you're really looking at the acreage, right? Because the acreage is going to drive that number. In fact, this is the most important thing. If you can learn if I can bring you anything today, if you're listening to me, anything, this is the time to listen. Ears should be open. The appraisal form is designed to have the most important items at the top with the least important items at the bottom. Let me repeat that again. This form is designed that these items of importance start at the top and the least important items are at the bottom. Okay? Let me explain. The first thing is most important. Is it a cash or cash equivalent sale? Was the sale of that property done for a cash or cash equivalency? Meaning they got a loan. They didn't barter. They didn't trade things. I didn't trade, hey, I'm going to give you $10,000 cash. I'm going to trade a house I have in the Hamptons, and we're going to do this trade. We want to make sure it's for cash or cash-like terms. Also, the time of sale is more important. Obviously, location, lot size, square footage is down the middle. And of course, your garage count, pools, and spas are at the very bottom. They're the least important items when picking your comp selection. So it's very important when you're doing your comps that you're looking at those items. And so I kind of set up a little mock. Any questions thus far on that part?
No, so far it's great stuff. Really good.
I know this is not exciting. This is not the sexy part of real estate. This is not, but it's important that you understand this, because when you go and meet with your buyer seller, it's important that when you're explaining the value of what they should offer or what they should list the home for, that you understand what is important when you're pulling your comp selection.
Actually, we do have a question, Don, real quick from Joanne. She asked a good question here. When comparing a 7,000 square foot lot versus a 15,000 square foot lot, her home was on a 7,000 square foot lot. I could find where 15,000. Sorry, I don't understand the question, but I do have a question. How do you determine the value of like a bigger lot? Like so for, a bigger lot or a view, a lot of times like in the city in San Francisco or in some other areas, there's properties that are similar and then one has a view and one doesn't. How do I know what the value of a view or
well, that is the $1 million question that everyone always asks. And there's no easy answer. There's no something that says, oh, it's worth this much more, that more, because each and every market is unique. And let me explain this to you. For those of you who know Newport Beach, California, that is a very high-end, 10 million, 5 million, $40 million market, where if you live down there, it's very small lots, 2,000 square foot, 3,000 square foot lots, high density, no parking because it's on the beach, and there's literally no parking. It's like we go down and we always play parking karma, trying to find a spot to go to the beach. And so if you live down there and you're paying $8 million or $10 million for a house, you drive a Ferrari, and you're looking at a house down there, one's got a 2-car garage and one's got a 3-car garage, how much more are you going to pay for that garage? Are you going to pay $5,000? Well, hell yeah, my car costs $250,000, right? I don't want it sitting out there in the ocean air and the salt and people riding around their bikes. So that particular garage may be worth $250,000. In fact, there was a sale of a parking space that just went down in New York, Manhattan. I think it was like $6 million for a parking space. Not a garage, a parking space. Okay. Now you take that same analogy and you go up to where I live in the Inland Empire, where home prices are $500,000, and you're looking at a 2-car garage versus a 3-car garage. How much are they going to pay for that additional parking space? Are they going to pay $250,000 for that? No, because it's half the price of the house. And then you go up to the high desert where home properties are $100,000. So the first thing you have to do is say, what price range am I in? What price market am I in? How much does it cost? Is there a cost? To say, how much would it cost to do this? And then by looking at the data as an appraiser, as an agent, as a trained professional, you can look at the data and measure what's called by regression analysis. And so actually in our appraisal reports, when we're looking, I'm actually running, and this is very complex and detailed, I'm actually running regression analysis. This will actually plot the data and tell me that the price per square foot difference is between $50 and $73, and that the lot size is difference between 3 and 8. So I'm running regression analysis along with my experience to help me determine on what adjustments I should be making in the marketplace. So it's a very complex question, and that's why appraisals are such a unique art and a science.
Mm-hmm. So here's another question. What if this is something that we run across a lot as well, is not having any comps? Like I have a 1,500 square foot house, 2-bedroom, 1-bath, or whatever, and there's no other there's nothing around that's even close to that. So
let me circle back to, let me show you this in a little bit of analogy, and then I'm going to circle back to answer that question.
Okay.
So this is a property at Upland where I just pulled the property profile of the tax records that shows me it's a 2,431 square foot home with a 5,888 square foot lot built in 1982. So I know that information I have, and then I'm going to go and create a search, just like I was going to do a CMA, right? So I can literally go into my MLS, correct? And I'm going to go and do a search. And I'm going to say I want active, under contract, pending, closed comps. Usually I want to stay in 6 months, but if I don't have any comps, Kevin, I can go back as 12 months. And sometimes I'll go back 2 years to look at that. And then I can figure out what market values are doing. Sometimes I want to know what hasn't sold. right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I could go to my client and say, look, here's what they priced at, and it did not sell. So we want to go to that price. Here's 2 comps that did not sell. So sometimes telling my clients what hasn't sold is just important telling them what's on the market, because they all want to look at list price, but list price, they haven't sold. So I want to look at pending, closed, and canceled. Obviously, I want like for like. I want a single family residence, right? And I want to try to stay within plus or minus 15 or 20% of GLA.
What's GLA?
Gross living area. So my living area.
Okay, so you
And
want
one time it was funny. I had a client call me up and say, "Why are you calling my house gross? You're putting gross living. My house is not gross." I know it's the total size of the square foot, you dummy.
So when you say gross living area, are you talking about like you're not talking about living space. You're talking about the lot size. You're talking about the garage.
No. Gross living area is defined as above ground living area. It does not include the garage.
Okay.
Typically does not include a detached casita or detached guest house. That's done separately.
Okay. So you're talking about the actual square footage that's listed on the MLS or the tax record.
Right, but you got to be careful, because if you do have a house with a guest house, a detached guest house, some agents will combine it and put it in MLS and say, oh, the home is 3,000 square feet and has a 2,000 square foot main house and 1,000. So you've got to, when you have something unique, you got to expand your search and then look at it. So let's go, 2,000 square feet. And let's say we're going to go up to 2,800 square feet, right? So I'm going to say I'm going to pull homes of that size and that size. And then I'm just going to go into my city, which is the city of Upland, right? And I'm going to go ahead and do a map search. And I can type in my property address here. Which will pinpoint that property. So now I can zoom out and I say, okay, I want homes of that size. And let's say I grab this grid and I just grab it and draw a map and say, okay, give me all the data in this particular neighborhood. And I pull up this data and it gives me 39 recent comps, which then I can narrow down. So a good amount, if you get anywhere from 15 to maybe 40, which is on the high side data, you should have enough data if they're similar. And I hit this and I say, okay, here's all my data. Now I got to figure out, I've got 39 data points. Now I got to figure out which ones are the best ones, because it gives me a big range. And the problem with a lot of times as agents, as an appraiser, I go out to the house and they bring me this, everything. Yeah. Oh, here's all the data. And I'm like, you don't know your job. You suck. You suck. You suck as an agent, because you don't know your property. You don't know your data. And you bring me this and I can tell you that you're not good at your job.
Don, real quick, this leads me to a really important question as well. Again, like going based on what you're saying, when we're dealing with multiple offers, a lot of times when people are submitting offers without appraisal contingencies, I mean, they're going through the steps and explaining to the clients the consequences, but great question. So what do we provide to an appraiser? And I don't want to digress you, but I want to get this in because I think it's really important.
I'll circle back to that. What should you bring the report? I'll finish with that. You got 10 minutes. So just anyone can look at this data and tell me some issues or problems real quick. Can anyone just throw out a few points and say, hey, I see some problems in here. I wouldn't use this one. I wouldn't use that.
Anyone jump in, guys? Anyone see the problem?
Take a shot.
With this?
Be alert.
What I see on this, red arrows, somebody said.
That's true. A lot of price drops. That's a good point.
Really, that's a good one. Yeah, that's bad.
What else?
What else do you guys see on here? Let's see. Year built.
So year built, perfect. So that's a good one. So my home was built in 1982, and I've got comps that are built in 2017. And then I got another comp in here that's built in 1947. How is that comparable to my house? Right? So
right.
Let's go ahead and then narrow that down. We'll say, okay, we want homes that are built between 1975 and maybe 1990 or something, and then rerun it. So now we've got 31 comps. So now that's going to tighten up our range. What's the next problem you see?
All right. What else do we see out there? Number of beds and baths. Thanks, Stacy. Thanks, Jamie. Thanks, Zechariah.
Yeah, I still want to see what that is, and I don't want to narrow it down yet. I probably look next at lot size.
Somebody else said lot size, beds, bath.
So I've got lot size in here that are 17,000 square feet. I got lot sizes here in 57. So my subject has a lot size of 5,088. So let's narrow it down to that. Let's go down to say we want lot sizes between 3,000 square feet and 8,000 square feet and rerun it now. And now we're down to 10. So now we've got some good comps, and we've actually got one that's sold, three that's sold on the subject street. So now when I'm meeting with a client, I can go through them and say, all these are standard sales. They're not REOs, they're not short sales. I've got comps that are similar in size because my home's a model match, right? Whatever. And then I've got comps that bracket and they're similar lot size. And now when I sit down with my client and say, what should we price in at? Right? I can go through these photos and say, well, here's how your photo looks like. This is what your backyard looks like. This one's got beautiful blue coloring, and go through all the data to go through it with my client to determine what their price is. So why is this home selling for 580, right? And it's small, and here's one for 550 that hasn't sold. Why? So that's a good question. They're the model match. So again, agent took crappy photos, right? And this is what it looks like inside. So you can see it's not upgraded, it's not staged. It doesn't look really good. I mean, I don't know. Somebody was taking Quaaludes when they designed the shower, and compared to this one, that is, the same exact model that sold for 580. So better photos, you can see, right? Doesn't look that much better. But, to be honest with you, I think that, again, the agent did a better job on photos and presentation and drove the traffic, and that's how you bring value. And you say, look, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, can you see the difference between this one that sold for 580? The agent didn't do a very good job on presentation. In fact, this house has been on the market for 100, whatever, how many days, right? And you can then infer that, say, hey, here at the Markarian group, real estate, we use a professional photographer. We do great brochures and to drive as many possible qualified buyers to your home to get the highest possible price for him. Do you see the importance of that, Mr. and Mrs. Seller?
Yep.
Can you also see, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, that this particular person put this house on the market and they started at a price? Now, I know you want to list at 620, but let's look at this property. They've listed this property, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, for 598, and now at 598.98, now they dropped to 593. They're dropping their value, and they still haven't sold and been on the market. So I know you want to go at $610,000, but we're probably going to overprice, and we're going to be competing and chasing these people down. So let's price in somewhere that's going to be, a compelling reason to sell your home. Do you understand the importance of that, Mr. and Mrs. Seller?
Mm-hmm.
You see how I'm using the data to help? Because I'll tell you what, I made a mistake. I lost a listing in Diamond Bar. I listed the house and it did not sell. And I'll tell you where I screwed up at. You want to know?
Yeah.
I did not get the right list price out of the gate. I let them dictate the list price to me because I wanted to get the listing. And I should have got it at a lower price. I should have not allowed them to let me list at a high price because I sat on the market. We didn't get any offers, and they got frustrated with me and felt I was not doing my job, which we were. We're doing open houses and marketing and doing all the stuff that an agent does, but we were overpriced, and they didn't want to hear it from me. So sometimes being the first agent to get the high listing price, it sucks. I'd rather be the second agent who goes in there after they expired the listing or canceled with that agent to get them to list at the right price. And so I made a mistake because I didn't have the balls to go in there and tell them the true price because I wanted to get the listing.
Yep. So on this, Don, that's really, really great information, like very valuable. And a lot of agents make those mistakes, and it's good to hear that. Couple of quick questions. We're running out of time. I don't want to get these questions in. Some people ask, so going back to some of the things we were talking about earlier, what if there are no comps? What do you do? If a lot of times we have situations, there's no comp, other comp, we can't find it. So what do we do? Do we go back and date? Do we go extend the search, like in terms of the parameters? What's the best thing to do in that situation when there's no comps?
Yeah, what you do is you got to spread. You do a couple things. If it's really complicated, when you got to widen your net, you got to cast a larger net. So you're going to go back in time. You might go back a year, might go back 2 years, and then you might go out, half a mile, 2 miles, 3 miles. And so, like, if you have a really unique property, let's say you have something that is a horse property, it's an equestrian property, it's located on a 5-acre property, right? What is the driving force? Who is that buyer? What is that property going to appeal to? It's going to be to a horse person, right? It's got a horse bill. So now I got to go and say, okay, let me expand my search out because my buyer is going to be a horse person. Where are people buying horse properties? And I have to go out and expand my search, right, for time and in distance. And then I've got to go and then find horse-like properties and then infer. Now, if one neighborhood's superior than the other, I've got to make adjustments down. And so I'll look and say, well, look, what is the actual neighborhood? What is the actual neighborhood values? What is my property? And then expand the search. But if you have a property that's called a white elephant and it's way overbuilt for the neighborhood or really unique, there's a thing called the principle of regression. And it says that a property's value will trend with the neighborhood value. So if your average property is $288 per square foot and you come in at $400 per square foot, it's gonna start pulling back because people want to live next to people like themselves. Period.
That's a really good. I just posted your comment there. A property's value will trend with the neighborhood's value. That's great stuff. Okay, so what about unpermitted work? So, in different areas, there's like in San Francisco, for example, and some other areas, even in Southern California where you're located, there are properties that have unpermitted space. And some places have that more often than others. So how do you determine the value of a place that's got, let's say, as an example, decent quality workmanship, a bathroom, let's say, and it's done without a permit? So how do you determine the value of that, for example?
That's a great question. And it's a very, very dangerous environment when we're working with that for agents and appraisers. Unpermitted additions are probably one of the biggest lawsuit areas for both agents and appraisers. In fact, there was a big lawsuit in Malibu where the agent lied about the square footage on a $10 million, $20 million house. And it ended up going to the California State Supreme Court, and it basically changed our fiduciary responsibility for brokers. And so it's very important. So the first thing is that you need to check with your city without giving the address of the property. You need to know for that city, do they require a city inspection at a transfer? And the reason why some cities do inspections, and if there's unpermitted, they may make them either bring them to code or tear them down.
Right.
So that's number one. Does the city require inspection? And what is our policy on unpermitted additions? That's number one. Number two is the addition. Is it done in a workmanlike manner, and does it conform in overall quality, design, and appeal to the marketplace? So if you have a house that has a very good addition done or a garage conversion done, is the quality consistent with the property, and is the design and appeal consistent? If so, and your city is not going to come out, inspect it, tear it down, the question you have to ask yourself, is a buyer or seller willing to give some value to this addition? If the house next door is the same exact model and you have this unpermitted addition, would they give it value? And you say yes, they're probably not going to give the same dollar for dollar per square foot. It's probably going to be something less than. And so what you do is you have to disclose it obviously to your potential buyers. You may put an MLS that the subject has an addition for the buyer to conduct their own investigations, and then you can give it some value, but I wouldn't give it for dollar. So if your neighborhood is selling at $200 per square foot and the addition is 400 square feet, I wouldn't give it full value. I would give it something maybe 50%, 75%.
Okay, so about 50% to 75%, and that's based on the quality of workmanship. So if it's like tear down, then you're probably going to give it less value, right?
Yeah. And as an appraiser, we're doing an as-is report, not a hypothetical. This is very complex. So I have to give it value, but a lot of lenders, don't like it. But as an appraiser, I have to give it value.
Okay, and then last question before we go, and this is one we touched on earlier, is multiple offer situation. You touched on a little bit with like agents bringing a long list of comps to an appraiser. What should, if at all, what should an agent bring to an appraiser during an appraisal inspection? And should they do it? And what should we watch out for legality-wise, stuff like that?
Well, I think, number one, I think there's a misconception that they can't talk to the appraiser. That's not true. Due to the new laws that they can talk to, they can't talk directly to the mortgage lender or anybody who has a direct, like a processor, or anybody who has a direct situation with the lender. In fact, the real estate agents are my best source of information. They are going to know more sometimes about a property and neighborhood than I do. And I'm relying on those agents who are intelligent and who know their market areas to give me information. In fact, when I do an appraisal, I'm required by USPAP to directly verify the transaction, right? Have you ever received a phone call from an agent saying, hey, appraiser, hey, you sold this property 4 months ago. Can I ask you a few questions about it? It's because that appraiser is supposed to do that. Okay, number one. So I would like you to bring me a current list of any recent upgrades. Any recent upgrades, remodeling, here's what's happened to the property. Also, if there's any HOA dues, any common areas, anything like that, I'd like to know, right? You can bring me comps, and sometimes I'll bring the agent's comps and the appraiser's comps, and I'd like to know, hey, this home had this issue, or this home had that issue. Don't tell me how to do my job, but bring me, relevant content to make my job easier. I also bring them the zoning, but you may not be good enough or qualified enough to bring them the zoning, but I do, because I find out a lot of appraisers do not know or put the adequate zoning in there. If you do have an addition and it's permitted, absolutely bring a copy of the permits. I will love you. You'll make my job happy. And when you call and bring me my stuff and my permits and say, here's a complete package, here's my business card, here's a copy of the 5 offers we received, the top sheet to see how many multiple offers, here's a copy of the permit, here's a copy of upgrades. I will love you. You made my job easier. Doesn't mean your value is going to come in though, because you are not my client, nor is your buyer my client. My client is the lender, the mortgage lender. Also, that the definition of market value is the most probable value and not the highest possible value, meaning that I could care less. I'm going to be most probable because we're not here because you decided that you love this property and have to have it and overpaid for it. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, that's really good info there as well. That's really good info. I'm posting it here. I hope you guys all copy and paste what I just posted and remember what Don just said, because it's really important, especially when we're dealing with appraisers. We want to provide them with the information, not tell them how to do their jobs. And I think that's really important. And
if you want to piss me off, that's a great way for you not to get your value.
What's real quick, and then we'll end it. What should we never ever do with an appraiser, like that will completely turn you off, piss you off? Like if there's one thing you can think of, and if you can't, that's okay. But what should we not do? What are some things that agents should not do?
Well, number one is you don't want to tell me that appraisers are, they have much more training typically than an agent, much more licensing requirements. Is to tell me that I don't know my job, or I'm stupid, or appraisers are dumb in general. And an agent should tell that. They honestly will tell you that. They'll come out and tell you, I've been selling properties here and this long, and I've been doing this and such like, and I've got this many, and you can't tell me, and they don't understand the guidelines that I have to adhere to, the bank. They don't understand that I have to meet this certain criteria. They don't also understand that I'm only getting paid $400 or $450 to do this report, and if I go super high, that the underwriters and the review appraisers are going to beat me up, and they're going to want all this additional extra work, and I don't get paid an additional penny. So a lot of times these appraisers are getting paid peanuts, and you're making 50 times more than they're making, number one. And number two is that they don't get paid any more money to bring your value in at some ridiculously high price. So when you meet with them, be on time, treat them with respect, provide them with the data, and smile. Right? If I come out of there with my data, my information, I'm not sitting around waiting for you 15, 20 minutes to show up. I'm going to be much happier when I'm looking at your report. Now, it shouldn't be that way, but I can just tell you when I walk out of there, I'm like, I can either walk out there with a happy face, or I can walk out there and go, that agent was an asshole.
Yeah. So just be courteous, be nice, and at the end of the day, we're all human. One last question here. When do you write up a problem for the condition of the property? Are you looking for things wrong?
Well, that's a complex question because am I doing an FHA appraisal? Am I doing a VA appraisal? Am I doing a conventional loan appraisal or jumbo? Different secondary, FHA has different guidelines than conventional. But I'm always looking in California for earthquake brackets on the hot water tank, smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detector, smoke detector in every bedroom, smoke detector in the hallway of every living area, and one carbon monoxide detector in the state of California. But I'm also, if there's any items any construction going on the property, anything that's tore out, any roof leaks, anything that empty swimming pools, anything like that, I'm looking for that the lender's going to probably want me to know. But I'm noting I'm a little bit more aggressive than the average bear, and I write up a little bit more things on condition because I want to CYA my own butt and make sure that I cover and I don't get sued.
Got it. Man, this was really good info. We didn't even get into VA or FHA. That's like something we should do on another call. I feel that each subject alone, each aspect, like VA versus FHA, that those two separate items can be an hour conversation. So, man, this is really, really good stuff. Don, thank you so much. Anyone have any other questions, guys, before we end it for Don? This is such an awesome call. So much good info. I know. Tristan said, I wish he did. You answered it all. The sergeant, baby. So neat. All right. So Don, thanks so much, buddy.
Thank you. I hope this is valuable. And I hope that when you're doing your comp selection, that this will help out. And most importantly, you are a fiduciary to your client. Make sure that you do a great job for your client. If you do, your business will grow. So always remember client first.
Awesome. Thanks, buddy. Thanks, guys. Everyone have a great weekend. Take care.